everybody. So I'm just going to do a little painting session live whilst I just set up the tech. Let me know in the comment section where you are tuning in from. I'm going to be painting some florals in my sketchbook today. There we go. So I think that we should be live on Facebook, Instagram and YouTube. So hello everyone. Today's a bit of a paint party. I'm going to be doing some florals in my sketchbook. I've got some acrylics. I'll let you know all the details in a sec. But today's a bit of a celebration because it is the last day for 35% off Learn to Paint with Confidence. So I'm going to drop the link in the chat box. If you want to come join the party, I think there is currently 26 new members just this week. So that is super exciting. Today's a bit of a party and you'll have to put with me with the light because the sun keeps on coming in, then it disappears. So hopefully the camera will just adjust for us. My colours I've got are black, white, phthalo blue, Hansa yellow, vat orange and quinacridone magenta. And I'm going to be painting some sunflowers and some roses. So let's have a start. I think I'm going to start with my rose. Now it's going to be a red rose, but I actually don't actually have any red. So I'm going to kind of make a red with the magenta and the orange. And I'm just going to start with that. So yeah, let me know where you guys are in the world. It's always super fun doing these lives and everyone just coming together over all the globe when we all love art. It's super cool. Let me know as well if you have any like painting projects currently on the go. I'm just doing some like sketchy florals in my sketchbook because sometimes I feel like a canvas can be a bit overwhelming, whereas when I kind of go in my sketchbook, it kind of feels like a really nice break from it having to be like, perfect. And it just feels a little bit more playful. I suppose it's not as pressurized. So I'm kind of going to start by mapping out my main shapes. Amanda says, is this abstract floral? Yes, it's going to be, I wouldn't say abstract, but it's going to be a bit more of like an impressionistic rose. And those are my favorite kind of florals. And these are in acrylics. The acrylics I'm using are golden acrylics, which are my absolute favorite because I find the vibrancy is really nice. The pigment is really lovely. So I've got like my basic red down. I probably should wait for it to dry a little bit, but what I'm going to start to do is kind of map in some of the shadows and start building up my rose. Now, very often we can kind of think, oh yeah, we know what a rose is like. It's just in a spiral. Whereas actually, when you really take in the reference photo, you'll just see little shapes that make it up. And when you just apply these shapes, it starts to make up the rose for you without having to put in every single petal. Now, usually these are sort of triangular shapes. And when I'm first mapping out my flowers and kind of really getting a sense of them before I, add all the layers, I kind of just like to map out these basic shapes because it allows me to see where my light and darks are. So what I'm currently doing is kind of taking my photo, which I just have off to the side of me, and really kind of simplifying what I'm seeing, putting it down into a shape, then putting that shape down onto the painting. Now, the kind of skills, who here, by the way, was tuning into Tuesday's live workshop where we went through the 5 different skills? Let me know in the chat box if you managed to catch that, because I'm kind of going to be referencing that workshop in bits in today's class, because this basically what I'm doing right now would take into account the 2 of the different skills. That is drawing, so that's basically seeing a shape and being able to put that down into a 2D form, and then also value. So value is our lights and darks and everything in between. So this is kind of the first step I would do to painting a rose before I really go and put, every sort of layer on. And I don't usually go in with black, I will just say. However, the reference photo is, with it being a red rose, the blacks are very helpful to really creating that dark sort of red. So I'm putting the black down, and then what I'll do, I'll just go over the top with kind of a red, and it will just really make that dark color sing. Now you can already see we only have 2 colors down, literally just a base red and then a black to kind of carve out, and you can already see the rose, it just appears. Now that is how powerful, really, just applying those two core skills, just such a difference that it makes. So you don't really need to add a ton of detail, especially at the early stages, but this is how I kind of like to start my paintings, to really just map them out before adding a ton of detail. So whilst that is sort of drying, I'm going to start to go on to my next flower. And then what we can do, or what I like to do, is really add in a lot of those colors and depth when we have kind of those basic shapes in. So the next thing I'm going to do is create, do I do the petals or the center first? I think I'm going to do the petals first. So I'm going to do a sunflower. So I'm going to take some of the yellow and a little bit of orange, and just add a bit of water just to make that super viscous and loose. And then I'm going to kind of squint at my reference photo and pick out some of the main shapes to see kind of how big it is. It's definitely bigger than the rose, and I probably want it to come to about here. So I'm just going to check in with some of the comments. Oh, Susanna said the live was amazing. So glad you liked it. Watched it a few times. How are you? Oh, thanks everyone so much for your comments as well. Liz says that she is busy painting. That's amazing. I'm just going to check in with Instagram as well. Yeah, just let me know if you've got any questions, guys, as well. This is just if you're just tuning in, I'm just doing a loose kind of abstract-y, impressionistic vibe painting of some flowers in my sketchbook. It's going to be kind of like a bouquet, but really I'm just playing. Sometimes we can put so much pressure on ourselves to create like the perfect painting on a canvas. And really, I just wanted today's kind of live video to be about the importance of focusing on our skills as artists, not just on the paintings that we make. Yeah, Margarita said the squinting is a golden tool in itself. Squint, 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 exactly. Squinting really allows us to kind of take out all the information that is not necessary for that certain stage of painting. So right now, I'm not looking at the little highlights on the petals. I'm just looking at those main shapes and kind of decoding it. And so I can place that main shape down. And then the further along in the painting is when we can start to choose how much detail we really want to put down. But at this early stage, when we're just focusing on composition and drawing skills or the values, the details really are not that necessary. Now, what I'm going to do as well, because I've got a white page, and this is a little hack, a little tip, is to, as you start carving in your painting, you can also, I'm going to maybe add, let's do like a little blue, a little bit of blue in there. You can start to carve out the negative space. So what I mean by that is, instead of just painting the subject, you can also kind of paint in the background and the difference between it. And what that allows you to do is kind of tackle it from both ends. So you're not just drawing in, say, the petal, but you're also drawing in the background. And it's a really nice way, especially on a sketchbook, you can start to add in a lot more depth. What's your favorite? Let me know in the comments. What's your favorite thing about a sketchbook? Because to me, I feel like very often we can see artists online using, these huge canvases, whereas sketchbooks are really where a lot of the magic happens. And I think that's why in Learn to Paint with Confidence, so many of the exercises are based in a sketchbook, because that is where you really see the true growth as an artist. Okay, now these are starting to dry. I'm going to add a bit more. In fact, I might even go in with a bit of black just in the center of that sunflower, just to make it really dark. And then I'm going to start to add in a bit of orange with some of the yellow, and perhaps a bit of magenta and a little bit of blue. Just to create kind of like a burnt orange color. So I can kind of start using that in the petals to really just kind of build them up. And this is where you can start to use your brush. So this is a brush by Zen Art. It's got a really nice shape to it, which you can see there. And it's really nice for petals, for foliage, all that sort of stuff when you kind of use this brush shape. And with the darker colors, I really like to keep the darker colors, especially in the center, coming out. And then a lot of the highlights can kind of come on the very tips of the petals. And it's really just about building up these layers. So you can kind of see with the rose, we're doing a very similar thing here with the sunflower. We're really focusing on values now. We've got our main shapes down, and now we can just go in and add some of those main values with that warmth. And now my rose is a bit more dry. I might take some of the magenta, again, mix some orange into there. So I've got a really nice kind of thick, heavy-bodied paint loaded up on my brush, and start to put down some of those brush strokes again to really kind of get that pigment. And like I said before, kind of going over some of those black shadows, almost kind of like to blend it out, but it just, because obviously black is not full of pigment, it's not very vibrant. When you kind of add the red over the top, it kind of like blends that depth, but gives it that pigment of the red as well. I'm just going to check in with some of the comments. Marguerite said, the liberation you feel, your own little private space to be free and experiment. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about a sketchbook. It helps me form my ideas and lay down a starting map. Amazing. Yeah, when we have that map, it's so crucial. It really, really is, to kind of give ourselves a bit of a plan. Suzanne says, lately I've been using my sketchbook all the time, sketch something every day. Amazing. I like to experiment in my sketchbook before I paint on canvas. That is such a great idea, because when we kind of go on our sketchbook, it allows us to be really free. And when we can like feel that freedom, it's the best time to experiment. And I really just felt called to do sunflowers today because it's a really beautiful sunny day. It's been a bit icy here in the UK, but it's a lovely sunny day today. And so sunflowers just felt like the perfect thing. So let's have a little think about what else I could add into this painting. I feel like there needs to be something here. Now, what I'm thinking of for the for the reference photo that I've got, there's a nice rose down here that I might add in, but not kind of being intended to be a focal point. But there's some lovely berries, like a winter berry. So I'm going to add those in. So I'm going to take a lot of the paint, a lot of the red paint. I'm just going to start to pop in those as like little circles. Now, they don't want to be perfect circles, of course. But if we add those in first, then what I might do is add in the background. Now, I've got to really think about the placement here. And this is where the composition skill comes in, because very often our brains can kind of put down equally spaced part items or repetition in like the perfect way. So it's really nice to properly disrupt that. So odd numbers work really nicely. So either 1, 3, 5, we might do like 2 really close together, then have a bit of a gap, and just spacing the subjects out from our page very kind of just like not looking too intentional, because of course nature is random. Like when we think about just dropping some seeds onto the ground, they don't fall in a perfect perfect alignment. Let's just have a little think where my last one might go. Maybe just one here going into the rose. And then what I'm going to do is create a green. So I want my yellow, I'm going to add a bit of blue. And I'm going to add a bit of the magenta into that because I want it a bit of a duller green. That's nice, that's nice. And then I'm going to just pop that in around what I've just done. and some little leaves here and there as well. So I definitely recommend all of you to find a little time this week, doesn't matter if it's 15 minutes even, to pick up your sketchbook and just fill out a page. And of course, if you are wanting a bit more guidance on improving your artwork or creating your own unique piece of art, Learn to Paint with Confidence is open, but today is the last day for the 35% off. So if you're thinking about joining, today is definitely the best day to do that. I have popped the link in the description, so feel free to join. And would love to have you in the party. It really does feel like a party at the moment because I've just added a bunch of brand new lessons. And a lot of the current members are really enjoying going through some of the new content because I always like to kind of just like constantly review what's out there and is it kind of helping people in the best way it can. So if I ever see a need for it to be better, then I'm definitely going to fulfill that, update that. And I've got even more plans, but I don't want to ruin any surprises yet. But there's even more plans to update it with some further lessons. So that's exciting. So yeah, the whole community in Learn to Paint with Confidence is having an exciting week because we've got new members joining and new lessons dropping. And it's pretty exciting. So I'm going to add in, you know how we did the black on that rose? I'm going to do the same with this little rose down here. So I'm just going to squint at my reference photo and start to pop in some of those shadows. I'm basically doing like a mini value study, but I'm even just doing it with two values here. So I'm just literally, I've got like my medium value of the red, and then I'm kind of squinting and just picking out that dark value. And it's really just a way of creating a bit of perspective because this rose is going to be viewed from the side. So I'm kind of using these shadows to kind of show the perspective of which way this rose is being viewed. And then I've got my berry there. And then that's kind of going to go into shadow here. Now I don't use black a lot, but actually in floral bouquets that are very bright, I do find that black really can give it a bit of a pop. So when you've got like a really bright, high value, creating that kind of very dark color underneath can make it just really pop really nicely. Okay, while that's all kind of drying, I'm going to go back over this rose with a bit of highlight. Now let's just get some more orange. And yeah, feel free to leave any questions in the chat box. Woodgill Art said, I started to use my sketchbook to do quick doodle drawings in charcoal after watching your workbook a few weeks ago. Oh, awesome. That's really fun. I love that. I think, especially like when I first started, I'd be really scared of my sketchbook and I didn't want to, I don't know, I didn't want to ruin it. I didn't want to use pages in it. It was like such a weird thing, really, when I think about it. Right, I'm going to show you a little sneaky tip here. So what I've done, I've got some white. I'm going to add some magenta in there. So I've got like a very light pink. Now, this is a struggle, especially with red roses, is to create that kind of highlight. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take, in fact, we could even push this a little bit. Should we push this to the max? Now, this is going to be a bit of an experiment on canvas as well. I'm going to take some of the white paint and kind of squint at my reference photo and pick out some of those highlights and put them on with white. Now, don't panic. I'm going to show you a little tip and trick. And this is one of the new lessons in Learn to Paint with Confidence as well. I don't want to spoil it for anyone that is a member and hasn't yet seen it, but it's one of my favorite things to do to give color just a real pop. So I'm just going to let that white dry there completely. And we will revisit it with the tip in just a moment. I'm just going to have a sip of my coffee. Marguerite says, thanks for permission to use black. I love it in foliage to add depth. Oh, exactly. That's when I love it as well. I feel like I'm being naughty when I use it though. Well, that's what art is about, right? Is breaking all the rules. If you can't break rules in art, then when can you break them? Okay. Now, saying that, I'm going to take some of the black and I'm going to add a bit of blue. Now, the reason why I'm doing that is not just for the depth of color, which of the pigment, which is one of the main reasons, but also color temperature. So when we have pigment in our shadows and our highlights, usually kind of denotes a temperature that's happening in there. So if we kind of took a little bit of that shadow and kind of just took that little bit, not in the context of everything else, we would often find that it has a slight temperature to it. Now, when I say temperature, I mean like a warmth or a cool. So say like blues are cooler colors and oranges are warmer colors. So we can literally apply that. So I've got this brown kind of color with the black. I could just add a bit of orange in that. Now, so the brown on this side of the sunflower center is, you can't tell ever so well in the live, but this bit is like a warmer brown and this bit is a cooler brown. Got blue in this side and orange in this side. And just that small subtlety can add quite a lot of depth into the painting. Now, we will wait for that to dry and then we'll go back over the top with some of the sunflower petals. Let's have a little look at what's dry. Let's add onto these little berries. In fact, no, before we do that, let's add onto this rose. I feel like that's definitely what's needed. So I'm going to take some of the magenta and the orange to create this red. And just kind of going to go over this rose here. Again, at this point, I'm kind of playing with the shapes, still kind of forming where those petals might go. And just kind of going over a lot of that black that we put down. Okay, cool. Now, is this dry? Oh, I can't do my tip yet. It's not quite dry with the white. Let's do some of the berries. Now, the berries are nice because what I'm going to do is take some of the magenta and orange and create another red. So I'm going to go back over them and just create a bit more of a circular shape if we've lost that from the foliage. And just give it a bit more texture as well with plenty of paint. Now, whilst that is still wet, I'm going to add a little bit of a highlight. So I'm going to take some of the white and add it into the pink. So it's very, very light pink. And add on a bit of a highlight. So it can be just like a dot. Generally with my highlights, I like to kind of let the brush do most of the heavy lifting with the brush strokes. Again, this comes down to a bit of experimentation. But sometimes if you just kind of dot the paint on, especially when the underneath is wet, it kind of blends it a little bit and then just kind of dab away. And what I like to do, especially with acrylics, is just build on that over and over again each time it dries. Yeah, I've got it. Woodgill art or Woodgill art. I've sent you an email about the course. Okay, no worries. I'll take a look. Yeah, so for anyone that's just joining, we're having a paint party celebration because today is the last day of the 35% off Learn to Paint with Confidence. So we're having a bit of a paint party. If you'd like to join, I'll put the link in the chat again, actually, because I think we've had quite a few comments since. If you're watching on Instagram, the link to join is in my bio. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, it should just be in the comment section if you'd like to join. It is the last day to get 35% off. So it'd be great to have you in. Basically, the course takes us through the 5 core skills that all artists need to create beautiful, stunning artwork they feel proud of. And in the course, the reason why it's a very different course is it's not just a bunch of tutorials to follow. What we do is go through a framework and a process for you to apply the skills in the right order to create your own unique artwork in your own style. So you can kind of start building a collection of art in your own right as your own artist in your own voice. Because I don't just want you to just, you know, follow along with me. As good as that is, I want you to tap into what brings you joy and what makes you unique as an artist. So that's what the course is about. And it'd be great to have you there. So what I'm going to do is take some of that black and add it into this red mixture that we had to create a darker kind of red. And I'm going to put that in the berries. I'm just going to have that on like one side. The other side to the highlight, I'm just going to add this darker colour. Just start to see that it gives them a bit more of a highlight, and we'll go back into that in a bit. So let's build up our, whilst those little white highlights, now you got to stay tuned for the white highlight reveal. We just have to wait for it to completely dry, because it won't work if it's even just a little bit wet. So I'm going to take some of the yellow and let's go over this sunflower again. So I've got loads of yellow loaded up on my brush. I'm going to use the shape of my brush to add a lot more paint on, because the first few layers were a lot more watery, whereas now I'm going to really start to pile on that texture and start to think about as well how it might interact with the center, making it look a bit more realistic and just building up those layers. So everything I've done up to this point is kind of like the prep work. You think about building a house and you like have all the foundations. We don't want to go straight in with hanging pictures on the wall. We've got to build the foundation. And then once you've got a good foundation, that's when everything else makes sense and everything else feels so much easier. So it's important we can take our time over this part. And really, I like to think of layers as kind of bouncing back in between each layer, rather than doing the background and then doing the subject or the foreground. I like to do both together. I feel like it feels a lot more cohesive, and it feels a lot more realistic. You kind of feel like the style goes throughout the whole painting, not just that you've got this background and then just like a subject just plonked on top. I like it to all feel like entwined together, and that's the sort of feeling that I love to give my florals as well. So it feels like you can kind of dive right into them. Can you use a hairdryer to speed up the process? Yeah, you definitely can. I'm not going to do that to you all, because I probably will deafen you if you've got this in earbuds inside your ears. But yes, sometimes I don't always do it with like a big painting, because sometimes I'm not sure how it will affect like the binders in the acrylic and stuff. But especially if I'm just like playing around, I'll definitely give it a little blast of the hairdryer. Now what I'm going to do is take some of the orange into that yellow to create a bit of an orange. Do I want a blue? I think I'll keep it orange for now, actually. So there's a nice vividness. And I might just pop that into a few areas in the sunflower, just to give it a bit of an injection of colour. And probably a little bit around the centre. And then I'm going to, take a little bit of the blue, just to dull that a little bit, so it's more like a brown. I'm just going to squint at my reference photo and kind of see those main blocks where there's a bit more shadow, and start to pop in some of that shadow now. Because what we'll do next is we'll go over it with a bit of a highlight. And of course, this is the cooler side. So this side is the side of the sunflower where there's going to be more shadow. That's why we had the blue and the black in the center. And as I'm taking that brush stroke up, I'm just going to kind of let it feel like it's kind of melding with the highlight underneath. And then also we can take that, I might add a little bit more blue to cool it down even further, and perhaps just a little bit of white. And then that can kind of be the cool shadow. These bits that aren't quite seeing the highlight, in the background. It will all become a lot clearer in a mo. Okay. And then next I'm going to add the highlight, and I'm fine doing that while it's still wet. That's no problem, because if anything, it will just kind of blend in together. So I'm going to take some of the yellow and add some of the white. And what my aim is to do is for you to just be able to take any reference photo that you see, that you like, that you've taken yourself, and to be able to create a painting of it. And this is kind of one of the steps towards that, is popping it down in the sketchbook and really practicing these 5 core skills. So those of you that joined us for Tuesday's live and learned all about the 5 core skills, what I'd really love to know is there a skill that you feel you could work on more? Is there a skill that you feel really confident in? Because like with all things, when we kind of got to map out our route to a certain destination, the first thing we have to do is work out where we currently are. There's no good focusing on where we want to go until we know where we currently are. So the first thing that I strive for everybody to kind of sit with for a while is to really empower yourself by knowing what are your strong points, what are your weaker areas, and what are the things that you could really focus on for the next month, for the next few weeks. And that is where you'll see the strongest growth. I think as humans, we tend to stay and focus with the things we're good at. And whilst that protects our ego in a lovely way, it actually can limit our growth, because our growth is in the bits that we aren't so good at. And when we kind of focus on them, that's when you can see the biggest growth. That's when I saw my biggest growth as an artist, was when I really focused on the things that I wasn't good at. And then that is just what catapults everything. So rather than it, feeling difficult, we can think, this is challenging me and it's really creating a place that I can grow. Okay, so I think it is time for the fun part. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some glazing liquid. This is by Golden. I'm going to squeeze a bit on my palette. So this is just a clear acrylic medium that basically takes down the pigment. So all it is just literally an acrylic medium, but because it's translucent, what you can do is mix it with, let me find a place on my palette you can see here, right? If I take some of that there and then add a little bit of magenta, you can see it just creates a very light magenta. I'm going to add a little bit of orange into that as well. And a little bit more magenta. And it creates this translucent feeling. So what we can do, we can put that over the top of the white parts, or just the whole rose. And what it will do, it will build up the colour over the white part. So we can still have, I think we could add a little bit more into that actually. Still a bit too translucent. We can kind of add it over the top, so it gives it this vibrancy. Now, I know it's a little bit harder to tell on camera, but in real life, you can see that the colour is so much more vibrant now we've added this glaze. So you can probably see in a relationship to this one. So let me just add it over half of the rose. You can see that this half here is a lot more vibrant than the colour underneath. So glazing is a really nice little tip, especially for red roses, to really build it up. Now, what we can do last, once that's dry, is go over with a little bit of the black again, just to get that real depth on the inside. We can also do this with any of the colours with the glazing fluid. So yeah, glazing is really, really fun to use and to like play around with. I definitely have a lot of fun with it. So I'm just going to check in with some of the comments. I want to try painting, but what scares me is I don't know the basic knowledge about the paints and techniques. My question is where to start. Let me just pop that up on the screen so I can read it easier. Yeah, so that really is what the 5 core skills process is all about, because I totally understand that feeling of like when you're like, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to improve my artwork or how to make this really work. That's exactly why I created Learn to Paint with Confidence, because it takes you through the 5 core skills, everything that you need to create a painting that you love. And it puts it down into a way that you kind of almost don't have to really worry about it. You just have to follow the steps. You just have to follow the process, and it will literally give you the skills that you need. And you're just having fun painting. You don't even realize, it's like a Mr. Miyagi. You don't even realize that you are developing these skills necessarily. You're just doing the exercises that I've created. And then once you have those skills, painting becomes so much easier, and you can apply them to your own paintings. So I totally get that feeling of overwhelm. And I think what doesn't help it is when we kind of, you know, we go into YouTube and we see all these different techniques, and every artist will tell you a different technique in a different order. And it's just, you end up more confused than when you started. And I totally can understand that feeling. So yeah, I think the first thing is really discovering where you currently are. Did you watch the workshop as well? I think the workshop will really, really make a lot of that clear. And if you haven't watched it, feel free to go check it out. I think the link is on my Instagram channel. If you go and have a look in some of the recent posts, you'll see that there. So what I'm doing now, you can kind of see that I've gone back into the red rose with the black, and I'm kind of carving into the background. So what's really nice, especially with roses, but all sort of florals, is when you bring the background into the foreground. So I've got the background, which is this like black dark color, and then I've literally, you can see here, brought it into the shadow. And that's what ends up making you feel like you're diving into the rose. So like before, when I said you don't just want a background with the subject placed on top, it just brings it kind of really in depth together. Now we can even do that with the sunflower, and kind of bringing that down into the petals in a way that it might even start to kind of meld with the center. Maybe that's too far. But yeah, just kind of bringing that all together. And this poor rose at the bottom is like the one that's been forgotten about. But I just felt really drawn to these bright colors, and I don't know, I think when we feel drawn to a color, it's good to follow that. Oh, something else I was going to show you before we log off, because I don't want to be on here too long. Already taken so much of your time up. Oh yeah, Marguerite says wax on, wax off. Literally, it's so accurate. It's like magic when it all comes together at the end of the course. Oh, amazing. That's so cool. Yeah, so in the course, we kind of like do all these little exercises, and then you see right before your eyes how it all fits together at the end. Let's just check in with Instagram, see if there's any comments that I've not looked at. No, I think we're good. I think we're good. Okay, cool. Yeah, as always, just let me know if there's a comment that I haven't replied to. I'll keep checking in every now and again. I was about to show you something cool, wasn't I? I forgot what it was. Oh, sorry, I got distracted. I just thought I want to do the same thing with this rose and kind of pull that in to the background. Okay. And I also realized we didn't add the highlight. I say we. It's only me that can really do that, isn't it? But yeah, I'm just going to add in this because I forgot about this little berry here. Incognito berry. That was it. I just remembered what I was going to show you is greens. So we spoke about color temperature with the shadows. We can also do that with greens. Now in foliage, this is one of my favorite hacks with foliage, because we have all these different greens, and we can sometimes just think green is green, but there's so much more to green. So let me just dish out some more blue, because I'm running low, and perhaps some more yellow. So I just want to show how a mixture of greens can be really nice. So a warmer green would be one that we have more yellow with. So we think about something like this. Whereas a cooler green, we're going to have more blue. And I really like to have a mixture of both. What we can also do is add a little bit of magenta to that to really cool it down. I'm just going to get some white, and I'm just going to show you how this applies to an actual painting. So let's say we want some more foliage around these berries. I might add like a leaf here. Maybe something that I love painting is eucalyptus, because it has this lovely blue kind of tone to it. So let's have a look at what happens when we add white to this. Now that's kind of like a mint, right? Just realized on Instagram you can't quite see my palette. If we get this minty color and we add in a little bit of magenta, just pulls the saturation down. It's almost like a grey. It's not a grey, but it's a real desaturated blue green. So the color temperature is definitely cool. Oh, I can't get my palette back now. Hold on, bear with. Sorry, guys. There we go. Right, so then if I take that, so this is the color that I love to use for eucalyptus. And now when I add this, you'll see what happens. It creates this color temperature because the color is very different to the green, say, underneath. The green underneath is more of this yellow green. And what we can do, we can balance both different color temperatures, so cool, warm, like lights, darks, all the different options that we have, just to create a different kind of experience with the different greens. And you'll notice that different greens work really nicely with different colors as well. So depending on the flower that you're painting, might depend on which color green. So that's like a very cool green, and we can even push that a little bit further if we add some white into that for the highlights. Just add a little pop of highlight there. And then if we wanted to kind of go for more of a warmer green, we just add more yellow. Now what we can do is still add the magenta for a darker feeling, for a more desaturated green. But you'll see if I place this next to it, perhaps this could be, maybe this could be down here, or let's pop a leaf down here. You'll see that the difference in greens, this one looks a lot more bluer, right? And this one looks a lot more, I don't know, just, yeah, light, like a lime green. It's not really lime, it's more of an olive, I suppose. So balancing all the different greens is a really nice way to kind of just up level the foliage as well. And what I like to do as well is kind of take both of these, especially near the end, and just like add some little highlights on top of those like darker shadows, just to kind of bring it together as well. Now what I might do is take some of that glazing fluid that we had for the red and pop that over those highlights that we had on the berries. So they're still highlighted, but it's just not quite as strong. And then we could even take, we could take a bit of this actually, or maybe just a bit of white, and just add a teeny highlight so that we've got the layers. So yeah, I'm just probably going to continue on with this painting and just have a fun little expression time with all these colors that make me feel so happy. But really hope that you can join us in Learn to Paint with Confidence. The link is in the description box, but I'll pop it once more again in the chat. And we kind of go through all these different 5 core skills so you can really get confident with how to approach a painting and how to feel confident whilst doing so, because it's not just about the paintings we make, it's about how we feel about what we make and how we feel as we're making it. That's what really gives us the benefits of creativity and feeling creative and expressing ourselves. And I think it's nice when you feel like you have a choice as to what colors you use or to what you paint, so that you are in your power of creativity, not just, well, I'm going to paint this tutorial because that's the only one they've uploaded and it's the only one I've not done yet. You know, to take your own reference photo and just paint it and not have to rely on anything else, anyone else, just with the things that you have, the supplies that you have around to paint something is so freeing. It's a really, really beautiful experience. So come and join us in the paint party. It'd be absolutely amazing to have you. And thank you all so, so much. I'm just going to check in with any last comments. Margarita says it was so lovely. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, thank you, everybody. That's really sweet. And thanks for just like chilling with me. I'm thinking about doing some more of these. Honestly, I didn't really have a plan for today. I just wanted to play in my sketchbook and just hopefully give you permission to play in your sketchbook too. So yeah, hopefully see you and Learn to Paint with Confidence in the community, and have a beautiful day wherever you are. If you've got any questions or you'd like to join the course and you just feel a little bit hesitant, please don't worry, I totally understand. Please just DM me and I'll get back to you and hopefully support you to make the right decision for you. Okay? All right. Have a lovely day, guys. See ya. Bye.